start with you here. In this filing, the DOJ takes aim at the Trump team's, quote, meritless accusations, the, quote, incomplete and inaccurate narrative presented. Did the DOJ go above and beyond here to reject Trump's claims point by point?
I don't think they went above and beyond. I think they did a very good job, and I think that the response that the Justice Department gave was perfectly appropriate. And I think that just the Trump people just basically asked to be punched in the face, and they were punched in the face by the response. I mean, the fact of the matter is they just don't have a defense, and by raising these issues, the Justice Department had an opportunity to lay out in great detail the basis for their investigation, and in particular to highlight the degree to which there is potential obstruction involved.
And you say they don't have a defense. Well, a Trump spokesperson is claiming that this search has, quote, nothing to do with any crimes, and accuses the FBI of staging a photo op. So I think that gives a little hint of what we might be seeing in Trump's legal team's filing tonight. What do you think, George?
Well, that's completely contentless. I mean, there's no. I mean, what they have shown that Trump and his people retained these documents even after they were requested, which is a straight out, flat out, literal violation of 18 U.S.C. 793, a provision of the Espionage Act. And the fact that they made false representations, the Trump people, Christina Bobb apparently made a very specifically false representation that a diligent search was conducted and that all responsive documents were provided in response to the subpoena. Well, that turned out to be false, and the basis for that the representation needs to be explored, and she needs to get a lawyer of her own, because if she's lying, she can go to jail, and if she could also end up testifying, well, that's what Donald Trump told me to say. If that's true, well, he's going to go to jail. And then they made some other false representations or misrepresentations about the location of the documents. They asserted, according to the government's brief, that the documents, classified documents, had only been located in the storage room, but it turned out, as that photograph dramatically illustrates, there were numerous classified documents in the 45 office, in Trump's own drawers, within his wingspan.
Yeah, the 3 documents in his drawer that the DOJ says it found. And on that note, I mean, you know, you have the legal aspect of this, but also, Jim, the national security implications. And this FBI picture really does say so much. I mean, how damning is it that Trump had opportunity after opportunity to hand back documents, and the FBI still found some of the most sensitive intelligence secrets stashed among his other stuff?
Well, first of all, by my reading, the FBI, the DOJ demands were for documents marked classified, and those documents clearly marked classified, you know, in bold colors there. And then when you go on to this claim that Trump somehow unceremoniously or magically declassified all these things without declaring so. There's a process for that in which you consult the intelligence agencies involved. You make judgments as to the security, the national security impact of those things. And that's not just, to be clear, a bureaucratic process where people have to check boxes. It's because there's information in there that is sensitive. For instance, information, particularly in the category of HCS, as some of them were marked, about foreign clandestine sources. So if you're going to declassify that, you need to protect those sources because they would face risk abroad. If you're going to, for instance, declassify material that involves intelligence shared with foreign partners, you need to consult those foreign partners, right, so that their own interests are protected. And there is no evidence and, frankly, no claim by Trump or his lawyers or his allies that any of those steps took place. So if Trump believes that he magically declassified them, he has created a whole new standard for doing so, which is to say, because I have them, they're declassified, and no attention was paid to the national security consequences for that claimed declassification. And I'll tell you, I had a clearance myself when I was in government, and I've spoken to loads of people who've had these things and dealt with these kind of papers. I mean, these are kind of papers you don't leave a secure room with, let alone keep them in your basement.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI counterintelligence agents that were part of this had to have a special clearance just to go in there and look at these documents. So, Sarah, there is another fascinating aspect of this filing. You can see in the corner of that photo a box with a framed magazine cover. The filing also mentions classified documents found in Trump's desk, as we were just talking about, along with his passports. Are they linking this criminal investigation directly to Trump himself?
Well, look, we've all known Donald Trump is obsessed with his Time magazine covers, so it was quite interesting that the Justice Department decided to include that in their photo. But I think it remains to be seen exactly what the former president's legal exposure is going to be versus the attorneys who are working for him and versus other aides who may have been involved in this. You know, it certainly is notable that they found documents not just in the 45 office, but in desks that were in the former president's office. You know, they also point out in this filing that they have some evidence that there were documents that were removed from this storage room before, you know, an attorney for the former president went in to conduct this so-called, you know, diligent review. So I think there are a lot of questions about who was moving these documents around, who might have known there were still classified materials sitting around the former president's office, and just what exactly went into this so-called diligence search that gave people like Christina Bobb the confidence to sign a document like this when clearly there were so many materials with these classification markings left behind, Pam.
Yeah, more than 100 that the FBI found during that search in August. So, George, after learning these new details from this filing, how worried should Trump be about an indictment?
He should be extremely worried, and we haven't even seen what might be the worst evidence against him, which is still the blacked out material in the search warrant affidavit, the application affidavit. And that will indicate what the basis was the government had to conclude that there were additional documents, even after the subpoena was responded to, that there were additional documents in the storage room and elsewhere at Mar-a-Lago, and not in the storage room. In other words, that the government had been misled or lied to, both in writing and orally. Well, somebody told the government that. We don't know who it was, and that might, you know, that could be some damning evidence about what people saw or heard about what was going on with these documents and who was going in and out of the storage room, and whether Donald Trump himself had something to do with any of this.
Yeah, still a lot of questions that remain to be unanswered.